so glad that you and I decided to do the podcast on the Diversity Business Review and to cover our article, which is the first article in the inaugural issue, the 7 stages of inclusion, 7SI maturity model. As folks probably know, Pam is the Chief Executive Officer and publisher of Diversity MBA Media that has both Diversity MBA Magazine and the Diversity Business Review and several other blogs and, if you will, publications under its realm. And I am Dr. Deborah Ashton, who is the Chief Psychologist and Learning Officer for Diversity Learning Solutions. I have experience in over 30 years of D&I in both Fortune 500 companies and also in test development and validation. Pam, one of the things that I really impressed with is that the McElvane name is known for quality. We have, with the 7 stages of inclusion and maturity model, would like for Pam to first do an overview and to share what is the 7SI, i.e. the 7 stages of inclusion.
Thank you, Deb. I appreciate the introduction. I also just like to add, I'm also the, under our realm, we have the 3I Research Institute, which actually is where the Inclusive Leadership Index lies, where the information for the 7 stages has been captured. So just with that being said, 14 years ago, Diversity MBA was focused on gathering insights for 6 areas: representation, board diversity, recruitment, workplace inclusion and retention, succession planning, and accountability. And just the last couple of years, we added global initiatives. Through that research, we were able to not just identify the diversity and inclusion strategies, but the intersection of that with talent management. And from that, we were able to truly understand diversity, gain levels of what needed to be measured, the impact of what commitment and real decision-making is within the realm of businesses. So we were able to, at that time, actually gather what companies were saying they were experiencing, which is actually the 7 stages of inclusion. I think this is really important for our readers to know how this shows up in their organizations and where it can show up. We were able to, Dr. Ashton, as you know, the work that we focused on is how the stages were coupled together in phases so that they would work simultaneously together. And so with just the 7 stages to show how organizations move through your organization, we were able to face what we believe are the paired stages that an organization must move through at the same time to have the most impact. And so in phase 1, they have indifference and incentive. And you'll have an opportunity to really do a deep dive and understand the meanings of these definitions. But typically, we're just stating that organizations, while they may be homogenous and have a low diverse representation, they just may be indifferent to driving a D&I strategy. But we know indifference and incentive together, while you drive behavior to move through change, is something that really will happen for you. And then we talk about moving into phase 2, where we know information, disseminating information while working on sustainability external to the organization is imperative. That coupled together, information and indebtedness is happening where your continuity is actually being shared throughout your organization. And then our last phase, where most mature organizations say they are, initiatives, influence, and integration, this is where they are able to really work their strategy, move through execution, and be able to rely on the actual influence of their CEO and commitment of their organization to get the work done. So with that, Deb, I'd like you to talk a little bit more around the change management and the next phase of the maturity model and how it can be used.
Well, the next phase, or I shouldn't say phase, is that the maturity model really is a change management model. What it's showing is that there is always a state that is the current state, and then there is some type of incentive in order to move to the, if you will, the desired future state. And so doing what we're really talking in terms of is organizations transforming themselves and transforming themselves intentionally, looking at, if you will, the fact that all organizations have beauty marks, but they also have blemishes. And looking at the blemishes in order to see what needs to be done in order for you to be a truly inclusive, integrated organization. And that means that you have to be willing to unfreeze the old, as Lewin would say, change to form the new, and then solidify the new. What the 7 stages of inclusion does and is, and ultimately the maturity model does, is help you actually go through the change in order to solidify to the new. I think the other piece that is essential is that by looking at the 7 stages, understanding that it is imperative that organization understand that it's important to stretch in order to reach the next stage or the next phase, but never to overreach. If you overreach, you will find yourself vulnerable and off kilter and will be pulled back. There's instances where organizations have overreached and therefore have received negative brand equity because of it. An example I have given many times is the example of one organization sponsoring Muslims in America overreached because they did not solidify at all of these stages enough support in order for there to be an understanding that's what they wanted to do. And then there was backlash for doing so and more backlash because they withdrew, as opposed to Disney that, for instance, had Gay Pride Day at their amusement park, received backlash, but because they had built on their foundation, they had enough support to withstand the backlash and to, if you will, be able to flourish afterwards because they stood their ground and they walked their talk. And I think that's crucial. The other piece is understanding that the reason why it's important to understand the importance of one part of the organization influencing the other is the 6 pillars of diversity and inclusion strategy model that we talk in terms of. And it essentially says that each key area of your organization has to be able to understand how it impacts the other with diversity and inclusion.
So basically what we're saying then, Deb, reading our article will give you a really good sense and the ability to see where your organization, what stage maybe your headquarters of your organization is, and then the subcultures that exist within.
The map itself allows you to go and find out which, if you will, cell or dot within each stage needs to be in order for you to have a foundation field to able to successfully withstand any ill winds that may blow.
So we hope that our listeners will definitely use the map, give us feedback on your experience, and from that, we look forward to the next issue.